right, you guys, this is episode 92 of Inner Demons, and I'm going to get straight to it. So let's get back into it. So episode 91, I told you guys, a little bit about the Palmas trial, what it consisted of, and, basically what I was going in there for. And, not to get off topic, but some of you, tapped in earlier. And, this is not going to be about a debate on what I did, what I went in there and did, what I didn't do, or none of that stuff. You guys want to hear inner demons, you want to hear the story. That's what I'm doing. I'm telling you guys the story. I'm not trying to relive any of this. I'm not trying to clean anything up. I'm not, out to clear my name or none of that stuff. This is all in the history books. You guys want to tap into inner demons because you want to hear the details and the specifics of everything that happened. And I'm giving them to you guys. I have no reason to be, dishonest about any of this stuff or anything like that. I'm simply giving you guys step by step the details, the process of how everything happened. And this isn't just for entertainment purposes. This is for a lot of you guys that, want to know about stuff like this, that want to, understand what ends up happening when, you're out there and you're playing these kind of games, you're involved with these criminal organizations and you're taking penitentiary chances, like I was for a number of years where I was out there walking on eggshells, dancing around my third strike. Anyways, again, this Palmas case, just to give you guys a little bit more about the specifics, it consisted of, I don't know exactly how many co-defendants there was, but there was a number of co-defendants in this case. And I believe they when they indicted these guys, they went in on 2 or 3 waves and, they came in at different points in the county jail. And I remember, reading about the case when it first came out, and these guys, they were all youngsters. They were kids. But when they came in, they were downstairs in the county jail in one of the court tanks or one of the holding tanks when you first come in, when they process you. And I think they had a recording device in there or something. And there was a couple of cats that they were a little bit older and they understood what was going on. And I believe that one of them might even have said something to the effect of, hey, don't talk about shit. They're listening. But you had other cats that were young and, they were turned up because of everything that happened. And they were obviously looking at some serious charges. They were stressed out and they were talking about, things that would end up getting them caught up later. It was a messy case, and again, for those of you that don't understand, the magnitude of this case, these guys were picked up for, I know it was several homicides. I don't know if it was 3, 4, 5, 6. Don't quote me. I just wasn't that deeply invested in the case where I remember all the intricate details. But there was a number of, 187s that they got hit for, and they got hit with some special circumstances that could have got them the death penalty. And of course, they hit them with 186.22 gang enhancements because, Palmas is a street gang. It's an active Norteño street gang out there in San Jose, and it's a reputable street gang. It's been around for a while. It's one of the bigger hoods out there, one of the more active neighborhoods out there. Palmas has always had a lot of, involvement with the NF, with street regiments out there. When I first got out and I hit the streets of San Jose, Palmas was one of my targets as far as recruiting. I knew that it was a big neighborhood. I knew that there was a lot of, very influential Norteños out there that, I could use as far as the regiment. And for other reasons, we had other issues, other things that were going on that I needed to use some of the bigger street gangs for out there at that time. But Palmas was just one of them. You had Roosevelt Park is another one. You had SJG, San Jose Grande. VSJ, Barrio San Jose. There's a couple of them. Then you have West Side Mob. But I remember, hearing about Palmas, and there was a couple of guys that I was working with that, had plugged into my regiment. But anyway, so these guys, these youngsters, they were going around looking for Sureño gang members out there at that time. There was a war happening, on the streets of San Jose, and these youngsters, they were the hitters. They were youngsters that were the gunners, and they were going out looking for Sureños to victimize. And like a lot of us do when we're young. When we're young and we're out there looking for other gang members to victimize, we're looking for enemies out there. A lot of the times you end up victimizing somebody that's not even a gang member. And that's what ended up happening in this case. That was one of the things about this case that blew it up, because apparently what happened was there was an individual that was a locksmith. He was out there, working his job at, I want to say it was early in the morning, something like 2 or 3 in the middle of the night. And, these guys, they were out there lurking, looking for a victim. And they ended up seeing this guy. He had on a blue shirt, but it wasn't because he was affiliated with the Sureños, with the Sureño gang. It wasn't nothing like that. He had a blue shirt because that was the color of his uniform. All they seen, though, is the color blue. And I can relate to that. I've talked about it before myself. I would see somebody with the color blue. If they had a bald head, they looked like a gang member, I was gone. I'm on that ass. You know what I mean? With all due respect to the Southsiders, you guys know I got nothing but love for you guys. But, this was back in the days when I was out there gangbanging. And again, a lot of youngsters make that mistake. They victimize somebody that's not a gang member. It's not like we're out there pulling IDs and really caring whether or not somebody's a gang member. All you're out there doing is putting in work. And that's what they were doing. But the messed up thing about this case is that when these guys hit this dude, San Jose PD was working some kind of operation, and they had that area under surveillance. They were sitting right there somewhere watching somebody else's house, or watching somebody's, the front of somebody's apartment, something like that. I don't remember the details, but they actually witnessed the homicide as it happened. So that's what made this a messy case. Again, these guys were charged with multiple homicides and multiple attempted homicides. There was a lot of different shootings all over San Jose. If I can get some of the old newspaper clippings, or just some screenshots of some pictures, you guys will see it with this video. What you will definitely see is the pictures of these youngsters that were involved in this, the first trial. And again, there was 4 of them. Negro, I want to say that one's name was Alex. Then you had Gangster and Gene, Shorty. So, this case, these guys had been there for a while. I remember hearing when they first hit the jail, and it was something that I never thought that I would have anything to do with, because I didn't know these guys, never met none of them, didn't know nothing about their crimes, didn't know nothing about, the details of what they were involved in. So when I was approached about, this is one of the cases that I'm going to have to participate in, I was like, well, how am I going to participate in this case? I don't know any of these guys. I don't know any of the details. And their whole thing is we understand that, but what we want you to do is we just want you to talk about, the origins, the history of, the NF, the history of Norteño gangs, the correlation between street and prison gangs. You need to talk about, Norteños when they're out in the streets and, they're going at it with Sureños, what kinds of things happen, the everything about, all the inflammatory shit that scares the shit out of a jury. That's the kind of shit that they wanted me to come in there and talk about. And based on the fact that, here's the other thing, based on the fact that I had Nuestra Familia blasted across the back of my head, I had a presence in the courtroom. I had a presence, and for the jury, it scared them. And just based on the fact that I was in there, I'm sure that's that was the intended goal. So, there's a couple of you that that went at me in the comments and was like, you're the one that put the nails in these dudes, and you're the one that sealed their gang enhancements and all that. You guys don't know what you're talking about. You guys, I'm not gonna, argue the legalities of this case, but you have no clue what you're talking about. They had they had a star witness in this case, and it was actually one of their homies from Palmas, a guy named Hector Del Real, that he ended up cooperating from the gate. And he was somebody that was out there with them rolling around, and that was the precipient witness. That was the one that put all the facts in perspective and tied everything together. And then you had some other cats that ended up getting indicted with the Charlie Campa indictment, other guys that were indicted in the Sammy Ramirez indictment. And then you had some guys that were indicted with Lencho. And a lot of these guys were from San Jose. Obviously, they were from San Jose, and they knew these youngsters. They knew them. They knew one of their leaders, Gene Shorty, the one that was involved in this case. And they were able to go in there and articulate some of the the details. All I could do was, like, I didn't know these guys. I couldn't talk about them. I couldn't say nothing to hurt them. And I ended up seeing, so when the day that we went to court, I'm kind of speeding ahead right now, but Joel Beta would end up, all my co-defendants had split by this point. All my co-defendants were gone. Everybody had either pled out or they were cooperating. So there was nobody left on my indictment. The only two that were left was me and Joel Beta. And by this time, Joe had moved into Little Max. He was my neighbor. So it was me, him, Turtle, and I forget who the fourth individual was up there. But, when it was time to go to court, we all had to go down there together. And there was a point where we ended up crossing paths with these youngsters, and they weren't mad. They understood what was going, because they, the reason why, let me clarify this though, so that you guys don't understand. So you guys do understand what I'm saying. When I say they weren't mad, what I'm saying is that there was a lot of evidence against these guys. I'm pretty sure they were already, they'd already come to grips with that. And they were well aware of who was coming in for what, and, what this individual's role was. There was a massive amount of evidence. Cooperators, you had people, giving statements. Some of them gave statements. They had video footage, phone calls, wiretaps, all kinds of shit. So when I say they weren't tripping, really, this case, because it was such a big case, Gene, I'm sure he understood it. Shorty, he understood, the whole reason why I was coming in there. And, I wasn't coming in there to drive no nails in their coffin. I couldn't. And for those of you that said that again, I didn't solidify no gang enhancements either. You guys don't know what you're talking about. The gang enhancements, the 186.22s, those are substantiated, based on the details of the case. Not, somebody that comes in there and talks about the history and origins. But I'm not trying to minimize my involvement either. Based on the fact that I walked in there, I participated, that's enough. That's enough. I might as well have went all in, because I'm gonna be looked at, just like anybody else that got in that box. And let me make it very clear to you guys. This was one of the hardest things that I ever had to do. Obviously, that box represented everything that I was against. It represented everything that, from the time I was a youngster, a young gang member, going through prison, living that lifestyle. Anybody that ever got in that box, obviously it was like they died. It was almost like they had died, because that's how we looked at them. Somebody that gets in that box, it's official once they do that, and it's all bad. So, I'm not trying to downplay, my involvement. The bottom line is I participated with the rest of these guys. My whole thing for telling you guys is that, I wasn't a percipient witness in this case, is because I was holding on to the last sliver of integrity that I could. I was clinging to that, because it's a fucked up thing to go in there and have to do something like that. Without a doubt, I'm in agreement with anybody that has anything to say about that. It's bad business. It's dirty. It's dirty, to go in there and to help these people that are looked at as, the enemy, to help them, with the case like this. I'm gonna tell you guys like this too. This the other thing. And I kind of described this. I think I kind of hit it home in my book when I described it in a chapter called Claustrophobia. When I was on my way to that courtroom, it's almost like everything slowed down. It was like, it's hard to articulate it to you guys and explain the things that I was feeling at that time, because I mean, man, this represented everything that I had advocated against when I was an NF member, when I was a Norteño Hermano, when I was doing my thing. But I used to tell these youngsters, never count yourselves amongst, the trash that turns their backs on us, and those that cooperate to help themselves, to save themselves. And here I was, in this situation. I was almost like, man, there were many times that, I was hoping that this was a fucking dream, that this was something that I was dreaming about. And this is no pity party. I ain't looking for nobody to feel sympathy for me, nothing like that. Again, I'm giving you guys inner demons. I'm giving you the details of what happened in a situation like this, because people are curious. They want to know, what happens, the process, how it works, what you were feeling, what you were seeing, the things that were happening. Again, my purpose is not to shift the blame on somebody else, or to act like, that, I didn't do nothing wrong, or to try to throw a bunch of justifications out there. It is what it is, straight up, but for those of you that, want to be too critical, and just want to just be disrespectful in the comments, I'm just going to get rid of you. You want to hear the story, that's why you're here. And I can take the criticism. I can take the constructive criticism when it's said tastefully, and I encourage it. Because I do want to know how people feel, and I understand how they feel. I lived that belief system for most of my life, so I get it. This is not a debate. I'm not arguing, my case here. Again, I'm just sharing the story. Anyways, so there's plenty of times I remember just thinking back, it's like, man, what the fuck are you doing, man? What are you doing? Is there any other kind of way out of this situation? Why are you doing this? You're my past, I'm killing my whole past. My the all the connections that I had, with a lot of the homies that I grew up with over the years from my neighborhood, cats that, I met in prison, a lot of homies I bonded with, all those relationships were they were dying because of what I was doing. And I was very well aware of this while this was all happening. Walking to that courtroom again, like I had said in the book, I felt like I just wanted to run. At some point, I just wanted to run out of that fucking courthouse and keep running and just get the fuck out of there. Seemed like when I was walking through there, everything was, walking through the hallway, getting ready to go into the courtroom, everything just slowed down in slow motion. It's like everything just kind of stopped. My senses ended up like my hearing got, a lot more, everything got louder. The colors got brighter. All my senses just started peaking. And I remember walking into the courtroom, looking at that fucking box. Just I paused for a minute. I looked at it, and I just pushed myself to go over there, to walk up in there, and I took a seat, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I'm fucking here. This right here, this is it. You've made it official, and I honestly believe that other people that were watching understood, what was going on. I know Shorty and them did because I talked to them after, after I went in there. And it was tough, man. It was a tough thing. And I'm sure they were the victims. They're the real victims in this. I get that. These guys are youngsters, but let's not make no mistake about it. It's not like they don't have any involvement in in this process. We all put ourselves in that courtroom, and the thing that was fucked up, having to sit there and just talk about gangs, talk about the origins, talk about, the history, the correlations between street and prison gangs, how gangs work, Norteños, that they're, everything from, their colors to their insignias to covert communication to why they do this and why they do that, talking about all those different things. It was tough. It was one of the I felt like it was a slow death. I was dying slowly up in that box. And here's the other thing that here's the other thing that was crazy. The courtroom was packed. These guys had a lot of supporters in there. They had their families in there. Plus, there was a lot of, paralegals and other, attorneys that were gravitating to this case. It was a big case. Everybody wanted to, they wanted to hear the testimony. They wanted to watch all this play out. It's entertaining to some people on some level. Just like people just like to watch court cases and they get into it, the legal process. Well, this was one of those type of cases, multi-murder case, the details of how all that happened. People are infatuated with that kind of stuff. And then you bring in, these gang members with all this gang information. They're talking about, all these prison style stabbings and murders and deaths and all this kind of shit. People were eating it up. But, there was a point when I was going through the process that I'm just trying to give the bare minimum. It's like these attorneys that were, these attorneys that were in there representing these guys, I felt bad for them. Because they were very inexperienced attorneys. And I was telling them, like, I was just thinking it to myself in my own head, dude, stop asking me questions. What the fuck's wrong with you, man? Why are you asking me these questions? Like, don't you understand that the more you make me talk, the more that, the worse it looks for your client. Like, shut up already. What, if I would have been one of them, I would have asked 2 or 3 questions. I would have sat my ass down. But these guys were very inexperienced. I was getting frustrated, like, fuck, man, I was the whole time I was in there, me and Shorty were making eye contact. He'd look at me and he'd be like, damn, bro, you know what I mean? He's like, this fucking dude's fucking up. And when there be at certain points where I could have said something bad, I didn't. Instead, I tried to paint it another way. And I'd look over at him and he'd be like, hey, good looking out, bro. We were in there communicating like that. Trust me. I'm not lying to you guys about that. And, he understood. Shorty's, he's a leader. He's a smart dude. I'm sure he was intelligent enough to know that, man, this guy is he's not trying to go in on us. He's like holding back, and he's purposely, trying to create different scenarios than somebody that really had an axe to grind, somebody that wanted to go in there and just bury these guys. Man, I wasn't on no trip like that. I didn't want to be in there. But anyways, these attorneys, it was crazy. I stayed in there 5 days going over the same shit with each attorney, 4 different attorneys. I had one of the craziest migraine headaches fucking ever. But, one of the things that bothered me was at breaks, during breaks, they take 10-minute breaks, 15-minute breaks, when I'd just be sitting there. I wouldn't be talking to nobody. I'd have nothing else to do than just sit there and just look around the courtroom, look around at different people, make eye contact with people, and just watch, look, observe. But it was during these breaks where their family members would be out there in the audience and they were making eye contact with me. And I knew who Shorty's sister was. They had a sister. All the homies talked about her, so I knew who she was. And there was one point when I first went in there and I sat down and I just, kind of looked around in the courtroom and we made eye contact. And she looked at me. She gave me a cold stare, right? She wasn't mean mugging, but she just looked at me and she just, real slow, she just shook her head like, and she got in my head. I allowed her to get in my head when she did that. When she did that, I looked down. I looked down and I looked back up at her, and she was still looking at me, and I shook my head like, I know, I agree with you. It's fucked up what I'm doing. I don't feel good about it. And, it was bothering me that was taking place, because at the end of the day, I was sitting there and I was thinking, there was times I was just blanking out looking at these people. And when I seen the looks on their families' faces, their mothers, I thought about how would my mother feel if she was sitting in this courtroom. She would have that same look on her face, because all she would see is that this guy right here is helping these people bury my baby. And I wanted to somehow let them know that, look, this is not my purpose. It's like, it's fucked up. I got to come here and go through this process, but this is not my purpose. It's not why I want to be here. And I was trying to think, how can I convey this message back to him? How can I fucking do it? So I waited until one of these attorneys asked me something to the effect of, do you like being here? And I answered the question as honest as I could. I told him, no, I don't. This is probably, matter of fact, no, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be a part of this process. I don't wish nothing bad on these guys right here. I don't know. Unfortunately, we all ended up in this courtroom. They ended up where they're at. I ended up where I'm at, and it was all predicated on decisions that we made. We made choices to put ourselves in this courtroom. And this was my chance to do it right here. I segued into, I understand that their families feel like, I'm the one to blame for this. But I would just hope that they realize that on some level that, they put themselves in this courtroom too. It doesn't make it any better, that I'm sitting here, but, I don't want to be here. And as I look out in the audience and I look at the faces of their mothers, and I made eye contact with one of them, and I made eye contact with Shorty's sister, and I look at their sisters and their cousins and their kids, I see the look on their faces, and I know that my mother and my family would be feeling the same way. And I know they probably hate me, and they're probably blaming me for what's happening here today. But it's just a messed up situation all the way around. At the end of the day, there's no winners. We're all losing. I don't want to be here where I'm at. I don't got to axe to grind. I don't know these youngsters. I don't know, nothing about their case. Unfortunately, I got to be here because of a situation I'm in. And whether or not it resonated with their families, probably not. Probably not. Short this sister probably, she was probably like, what, fuck that dude. Fuck him. He came in there. He's a piece of shit. And I'm sure, some of the other family members felt the same way. But at least I allowed them to see, that I had some type of feelings about this situation. I let them see the human in me, that I wasn't just this dirtbag that was coming in there with an axe to grind, and that I wanted to do them bad. I wanted them to understand that I knew that they were being hurt in this process. I knew that their sons, their husbands, their brothers were being hurt in this process. And it's a messed up situation all the way around. So, that was the best that I could do to convey what I felt like I needed to convey to their families. And, again, I didn't feel good about it. There was some individuals that were able to go in that courtroom and do what they had to do without a second thought. And they went in there with an axe to grind. Their position was, man, fuck these dudes. They're active, and just fuck them. Fuck their family, fuck anybody that's associated with them. And that's their business. We're all different, but I at least had to let people know that I wasn't on that page, man. I understood it for what it was. Anyways, it took me 5 days to get through that, that first leg of this unfortunate situation. And again, man, you know what? Let me say it one more time. I'm not looking for no, sympathy. I'm not looking for, this isn't a pity party. What I did was a fucked up thing. And yeah, I got my freedom back. I got my freedom back, and I'm living a better life now. I'm away from the cutthroat politics, and I'm completely removed from that lifestyle. And that's cool. That's cool. But the thing about it is, there's some people in the comments are like, you know what, man, don't allow yourself to feel shame, or don't allow yourself to feel bad about what you did. Fuck, you're in a better place. Yeah, but there's a lot of homies that got caught up in this process. They got, cannibalized, that didn't deserve that. And that's because, I'm not going to go into all the politics, but it's because of, the bad cutthroat politics that happened with me, and people were just playing dirty ball, man. And this ended up having, a bad impact on a lot of people. It was detrimental to a lot of good homies that didn't deserve it. Later on, this was the first case. There was a couple of them. But again, these cases, I wasn't, the one thing I'm glad for, I'm happy about, is that I was happy about, at least, or I was at least holding on to, was that all my co-defendants were gone. I didn't have to go in there and talk about none of the details and none of the stuff that we did on the streets, the giving direct information on these guys. Again, every time I went in there, it was like a historian talking about the same stuff I talk about right here on YouTube. The same stuff. When this was, when this was created, when this was originated, the founders, the bonds. What are the bonds? What's the format? What's the NF Constitution? What's the purpose for, mini writing? What's the purpose for writing, ODRs or Norteño, new arrival applications? That kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff I had to articulate. And, it is what it is, man. It is what it is. These youngsters, obviously, they'd end up getting, it was a slam dunk case. They had so many charges that it took the clerk 90 minutes to read all their charges. And I'm sure they had gang enhancement after gang enhancement after gang enhancement. Like, they stacked them up, buried them. And they all ended up getting convicted. I'm not sure how many of them ended up laying it down and cooperating later, but I know at least one or two did. And that's just, goes to show more of how they were victimized in this process. These guys didn't wake up one morning and decide that they hated, other gang members that wore the color blue. They didn't wake up and learn that one morning themselves. This was something that was indoctrinated in them. This was something they were taught at a young age. These things were instilled within their mentality. And, this is who they would become as they got older. These guys right here, they ended up getting involved at a young age, and, they made some life-altering choices at a young age. Those were, situations that, once they happened, it's like I've said before, you can't unring that bell. Once you make a decision to cross certain lines, it's, it's going to change. It's going to affect the rest of your life. And, that's what ended up happening. I still looked at it as if they were all victims. They were all victims of something that they glorified, something that I'm sure 10, 15 years down the line, if there's any of them that are still active right now, a light bulb will end up going off one day and they'll be like, damn, why the fuck did I make the choices? Why did I make those choices? I could have lived my life a different way, or I could have, took my life in a different direction. I could have been this, or I could have been that, and none of this would have ever happened. But unfortunately, it's a little bit too late for them. Anyways, out of all of the defendants in that trial, or in that case, because like I told you guys, initially they had constructed a courtroom especially for the Palmas trial, but they had a judge that ended up splitting them up. These 6 right here, had a different level of involvement than these 5 right here, and these 4 right here had a less, involvement than the rest. So they split them up, and these 4 that went to this first trial, these others guys, they watched how this first trial went, and after that trial, they were like, I don't want no part of that, and they ended up pleading out. Most of them all pled guilty, and they took their time. So that's what happened with the Palmas trial. And as far as Joel Beta, he was one that participated in that trial. There's a couple other guys that participated. I'm not going to mention their names because they have no intention, or they have no interest in being mentioned. I told you guys, there was a lot of fucking cooperators in these cases. You had, 5 regiments that got indicted out there: the Campo Regiment, the Ramirez Regiment, the Guzman Regiment, the Miramontes and Kramer Regiment, and then you had mine. So that was 5. And then you had another one after that. Then you had Larry Lucero Conejo from Gilas. And fuck, there were so many cats cooperating that it was crazy. It was crazy that they didn't need anybody else. Like, they had people that were giving information on top of information on top of information. It was funny. I don't want to get off track, but you had this one individual named Happy. I forget where he's from, but he was a character. He was a character, and this guy, he ended up getting indicted. I want to say he came in on Sammy's regiment, or no, it might have been Charlie's. But anyways, he came in on one of those. And this guy, he ends up getting all wrapped up behind his girl, and he gets to a point to where he starts stressing over his girl. She starts threatening to leave him, and he wants to check in now, but he wants to do it his way. And we all got these recordings. We all got to hear him. And he went down in one of those ODR secret squirrel meetings, met with Livingston and some of the other law enforcement officers that were involved in this case, or in these cases. And it was hilarious how this dude went in there. He was like, you know what? He's like he was really an arrogant dude. And he really thought he was in control. When he walked into that meeting, he sat down. He was like, look, he's like, so, all this other information that you got from all these other guys, that shit's garbage. He's like, I'm going to lead you to the pot of gold. I got the fucking, the bomb droppers, I got the jaw droppers. I'm going to make mountains move. People are going to fucking be devastated by the things that I do and the things that I can offer you guys. He goes, but this is how we're going to do this. And this dude was dead ass serious. He's like, you're going to leave me in double red. I'm going to cooperate. As soon as I'm done, I'm not going to testify. You're just going to get my information, and then you're going to sentence me, and you're going to let me go. And nobody's ever going to hear that I cooperate. It's going to be confidential. And this dude was dead fucking serious. He was, he thought that he was going to control this process, and turns out the dude didn't have no information. His shit was regurgitated. It was second, third hand shit that it was garbage. But this idiot ended up, he was the laughing stock of the jail. You guys that have read my book, he was the one that I mentioned. Besides Lencho, he ended up becoming one of the biggest dummies. Or no, I said besides Flaco Vargas, that sabotaged his deal back in the 90s. Happy was one of the biggest dummies that ended up sabotaging his case in or himself during these indictments. He went from possibly getting himself a good deal, being on one side of the courtroom, possibly going home when he was done. They knew he wasn't a big player. He was trying to make it seem like he was, but he went from that to no deal. We're not playing no ball with you. And then he ended up landing back on the other side of the courtroom. And they were like, you know what, fuck you, man. You're too full of yourself and you think that, you're calling shots and you're going to dictate this process, and it's just not going to happen. But it was just, it was hilarious. You guys had to, you had to have heard the tapes to really understand, the magnitude or the nerve of this dude. It was crazy. I got the jaw dropping, the stuff, the shit that, I'm gonna lead you to the pot of gold. Anyways, that's this is probably a good place right here to cut this one. That's pretty much what ended up happening with the Palmas trial. Again, this stuff all week, I wasn't looking forward to putting out these episodes talking about this stuff, but it's part of Inner Demons. It's part of the process. It's part of, letting you guys know what happened and being honest and truthful about it. It is what it is. For those of you, though, that, again, that think that I'm up here, trying to politic my case, trying to make myself, look better than some of the others, or, that I was justified in going in there doing what I did, or that it wasn't that bad because I wasn't a percipient witness. It's all the same. At the end of the day, what's white is white, what's black is black. You can't change that. Maybe I should have made myself a little bit more clear when I said what I said about not being a percipient witness. I was just trying to hold on to the last sliver of integrity that I clung to. It's like, other people were going in there and they were giving details that were affecting these guys. I didn't know them. I couldn't. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't. All these cases were committed while I was in the jail. These cases all ended up happening sometime around, 2006, 2007. I hit the county jail in 2004. I never met none of these dudes, never talked to none of them, didn't know shit about their case. But it's all good. There's a lot of people that like to try to spin the narrative and make it seem like I'm the one that buried these guys, and I'm the one that, dropped the hammer and all. Hey, I don't know why nobody else is being mentioned, and I think that has to do with the fact that I'm here. I'm telling the story, and I'm the one that's being transparent about it. But for those of you that are trying to get in, dig into the legalities of what happened with this trial, you don't know what you're talking about. You have no clue. Anyways, in the next episode, I'll talk a little bit about what happened, after I came out of, the courtroom. I ran into, Shorty again, and he actually, he thanked us. He thanked me and Joe. I don't know what Joe went in there. I wasn't in there when Joe went in, but Joe was from Palmas as well. Joe was from that same generation that Shorty was from. And, unfortunately, Joe was able to give a lot more direct information on Shorty, that he was a leader, that he was somebody that, had a lot of influence and things like that. But I guess Joe, could have went harder himself, but he didn't. because Shorty, when he came out, well, obviously, I might as well just tell you guys now, because if I tell you again, you guys are just gonna say, man, you're repeating the same shit, P. You already said that. When, they put us in the court tank in the hallway after the tunnels, they call them the tunnels. We ended up seeing Shorty again. They put him in one of the tanks by us, and he thanked both of us. He actually told me, he was like, and I believe I already said this in the last episode. He was like, hey, B, he was like, man, I don't know you. I've never met you. It's like, but that's kind of fucked up what the homies did, as far as, the way that you got caught up. It's like, that's fucked up, bro. They should have gave you the benefit of the doubt. And, it's crazy. Even, he knew about that. Even Shorty knew about that. But these are facts, man. These are facts. I'm not making none of this stuff up. That's what he said. If you'd have felt some other kind of way, I would have told you guys. He came out, man, fuck you. You guys are pieces of shits. You guys are gonna get yours someday or whatever. But it wasn't that type of party, man. And again, the whole time I was in there, Shorty, it was Gizmo. The whole time I was in there, and Shorty's obviously listening while all this is going on. I know he knew and understood that I wasn't answering the questions the way that I could have. If an attorney's asking me something, I could have took my time and articulated something and been very detailed and made it real bad for him, to the point to where it would have hurt him. But that's not what I was doing. That's not what I did. I tried to give short answers, try to make it not too obvious, but short answers, and just keep it moving. Anyways, the next episode, I'll probably get into something else now, because pretty much told you guys how this trial went. I could be going a lot more in depth, and these inner demons, these episodes would carry on a lot longer. Like, I could just spend a whole episode talking about just when we were in the holding tanks, or the process from the housing unit to the court tanks. But I'm kind of blowing through these stories quick, man. So we're gonna end up getting to the end of Inner Demons pretty soon. So again, I might end up bringing war stories back, or I'll branch off into something else. I'll figure something else out. I'm gonna keep the Mexican Mafia stories going, but I'm obviously gonna have to, think of another direction to push the channel in, something else to give you guys a little bit more than, just the Mexican Mafia stories. I'm not gonna be one dimensional. I've always tried to make my channel, I've always tried to have a lot of diversity. Guys that like this, guys that want to just, have books, hear books, or guys that want war stories, or inner demons, or, the stories about prison, stuff like that. So we'll see. But anyways, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and cut this one short right here. I'm tired. I want to get this one out to you guys. For those of you that are like, come on, B, man, 30 minutes, that's all you're going to give us on the inner demons. Well, here you go. I believe this one right here should be at least close to an hour. Plus, I gave it to you right after that short one. So hopefully I came through for you guys. Anyways, it's Friday night. I hope you guys are being safe out there. Once again, like I said earlier, I hope you guys are gearing up, getting ready to eat all kinds of turkey, all kinds of good food for Thanksgiving, as well as to show your appreciation for family members. Those of you that have family, you're very fortunate. Make them feel appreciated during this holiday. I'll be leaving something in the community tomorrow to let you guys know about the giveaway, one way or the other, whether or not I'm going to hold it tomorrow or Sunday. Chances are it's going to be held Sunday, but I will let you know officially tomorrow. Anyways, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Inner Demons, episode 92. I'll get out another story for you guys hopefully tomorrow. Be safe out there. Thank you for your support. Drop your comments. Let me know what you think. This your boy B, and I'm out.